right, good evening. I'd like to begin tonight's special select board budget meeting. It's December 8th, 2021. Present is Gwen Tanza, David Jones, Bruce Mello, myself, Mark Bills, and Guy Tanza, who's the videographer. All right, so let's start with.
The time is 6:35.
6:35, thank you. Just read it to you, it's good for me. So. All right, I'm working off of the handout that we got the last time. I'm not gonna do the new one yet. Okay, so we go under expenditures on starting off with summer highway salaries, employee mileage, payroll tax and such.
So sorry, where you want to start?
Under highways, right?
Okay.
Expenditures.
Okay.
Do we have any thoughts about revenues?
Oh, hold on one second, I need to do this. Are there any changes to the agenda this time? No. Any members of the public? All right, now we can start working on the Mark bills, working on the town budgets. We want to start at revenues, okay. So we'll start at revenues. We don't know the current taxes, correct?
Right.
So that we leave this open.
Yeah.
All right, state aid. State aid is based upon the number of money that is allocated per road miles. In the past, it's been budgeted at $39,000. It appears that there was a larger amount given last year, $50,408.94. Anybody know why the extra $11,000?
I don't know why, it was just, it was an automatic transfer to the town banking account. And I don't know if it was COVID related or not.
Currently, we got $22,247.99 back, and I guess we're expecting to collect, if they send that on a quarterly basis? Guy, do you know?
Yes,
All right, so we haven't got it all in. So I'm assuming that we would keep that the same at $39,000 and choose that.
I mean, for what it's worth, 2 years ago, 2 fiscal years ago, it looks like what we received was actually $39,416.
that was last
Which
year.
is when we increased it to 39. Well, that was not last fiscal year, the fiscal year before that.
Right.
Last fiscal year, yeah, I mean, according to this, we got 50,408.
Yeah.
And whether that's something we can expect to be different or
I
not.
don't think so.
I don't think we should, I think we should assume that it's the same and go with 39.
I stand by. All right, so we just started, we're just looking at the revenues. The first one was current taxes, we don't know. And the second one is what we get for state aid for the roads per mile. We're assuming it's gonna stay the same, so we're just writing down $39,000. Highway grants and better back roads in Wyndham Regional. Now, this is a concern that Archie, we spoke about with Archie the other night when we met, and that is the matching funds when we have a grant. We don't budget for grant revenues at this time because we don't know, so we can't necessarily budget for grant matches. But do you think we should keep in the budget a amount because we're gonna have quite a few matches that we're going to have to make in this upcoming year?
Which page you want, I'm sorry.
Page one?
No.
They're back at
Last
the very
page.
back,
We're doing the
page
highway.
5,
Oh, right.
under
Yeah, we're on
expenditures.
page 5. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, because I'm gonna talk about that, and the salt shed, we don't have any reserves, when we, like, for instance, before June, with the board's permission, we did get a grant to cover a leaf blower, but there's a $1,600 match to the $7,000 piece of equipment that we're getting. So this year, we'll have to come up with the $1,600, but in the future, we should maybe budget for some matches. This is something that you haven't done before.
Do you have any idea what we have in the funds right now? In other words, we have money that we put away for paving, money we put away for equipment, things, those are all rolled over. So do we have any idea what the amount is at this point?
The last thing I got was months ago. I don't have anything that's current. I have some information from several months ago, financial information in September. Right here. But, all right, so in September, I have information, but that's it.
It sounds like budgeting for an amount with the expectation that we're going to get a grant and have to match it would seem to be a prudent thing to do.
Right.
I mean, when we look at the fact that in discussions of matching grants, when we were talking about the sand salt shed, the shed is gonna be built, we had come up to a $80,000 approximate number.
That's the next, that's, yes.
So,
That's gonna change.
yeah,
That's, all right, so highways grants, better back roads and other grants such as that we have to match. I would like to put a number of, let's say, $4,000 or $3,500 based upon what we got back last year. And then we're gonna have a lot of issues with FEMA and
This is hard to
state,
figure out.
this is gonna be very convoluted at this point, so my concern is I would rather be able to readjust the budget rather than be short in the budget as we're going on. I would just hate to have to, well, we could take a loan out, I suppose, if we're short of the budget.
So we're on highway grants right now?
Well, I mean, I guess I think part of the problem is, remember, we historically, and I mean, this isn't something new, this is the way it's always been done since everybody was on the board and before that. We have typically run a surplus most years in the highway fund that rolls over from year to year to year. That when it, anytime that we've had a surplus that has gone back to the taxpayers, that's only been from Fund 1.
Correct.
That's not having anything to do with the highway.
Right.
Right. The problem is, without a treasurer who knows what our numbers are and having a real discussion to try to figure out, okay, based on that, how much of that surplus can we use towards previous commitments, like the salt sand shed, which I mean, we committed to that years ago and we never budgeted anything. I mean, I know now the number that we may end up matching is going to be greater than we originally thought, but it's not like we ever budgeted. I mean, you knew when you signed it that it was gonna be $50,000, but we didn't budget anything for it. Because at the time, the belief of the treasurer, who was Samara, was that we would be fine to cover all of that. So it's a little hard to just guess at what we need to budget. I don't disagree with you, I think we should. I think it would be effective for us to budget, I just don't know how, with the information we currently have, we can figure out what's budgeted. So,
Go ahead.
I'd say.
I don't know.
Dan? I was just gonna say then, I'm looking at a number here that I could round off and carry it to that following year to $3,500.
Well,
That's the only piece of evidence that I have that match grants.
yeah.
well, but, right, although, keep in mind, I mean, that highway, I mean, that was $3,500 in revenue that we received
Okay,
2
okay.
fiscal years ago. So that's not
even
even,
accountable.
the same number you're talking about.
All right.
You're talking about
About
budgeting expenditures
Okay,
for what we're going to have to spend
Yeah.
to
Okay.
meet our portion of that.
okay.
Which, that number might be, we might still end up with that number, I just mean,
Right.
this number we're looking at under revenues is not really something that's
All right, so we wanna move past that to explain to me this other, we can come back to that then, because I don't have an answer for it yet, as a revenue expense. Highway salt sand shed, so why did we get $9,000?
Well, I think the way this is shown up in because we have, because we've gotten paid money from the state, we've been reimbursed money.
Okay,
And because we have not
Started.
had an expense line for that grant anywhere, the treasury had to put the revenue somewhere.
okay.
Or, I mean, it is revenue, we did get revenue, it should be offset by an expense line somewhere else where we've paid 20% of that or whatever, more than 20% of it or whatever. It should be offset by that, but that is revenue that we've been paid back from the state, reimbursement, it's not revenue. We've been reimbursed for, we probably put in $11,000 in expenses we submitted to the state, and they've reimbursed us for $9,500 of that or whatever. So we're on the hook for the remainder,
All
and
right,
that will continue to be the case
all right,
until we.
Did we already give the Ron Bell, the engineer, permission to do the blueprints and
Oh yeah, all that's
Yeah, he's-
that's all. Yeah.
That had to be done before.
all right, so the highway salt sand shed revenues, money reimbursed by the state, it should be offset at some point by an expense line, so that's something that we need to look at again, is how our financial statements are presented. Permit revenues, in the past, it's been 50, since it's a revenue, should we keep it the same?
Yeah, that's basically fire permits that Sunny Rink issues, and we give Sunny Rink the money, he gets $5 or $2 from the
That's for
state.
fire pits, so the permit revenue, I would keep it as the same as $50, anybody have a
Yep,
problem with that?
Yeah, we can keep it the same, keep it as 50, but is that really, this is highway? This is the highway budget, this wouldn't be Sunny Ring stuff. This is some other
This is from
permits,
the
isn't it?
EPA.
Well, we-
Is this overweight permits?
Yeah,
Is this revenue for overweight permits?
we're under revenues, guy.
On page 5, highway revenues. I mean, I think it makes sense to keep it 50 probably, but I think
Yeah, that
this is
was-
probably.
That was
overweight.
basically for Sunny Rink's,
No, this is highway,
This is highway.
oh, okay, then that must be, then
Overweight
that must be the
permits?
overweight permits.
Ah,
So a couple of years ago, we made a bunch of money off of it, I guess and we should just keep it 50,
Yep,
because we have no way to really,
there's no way to enforce it, there's no way to.
yeah.
and there's no way to actually
And it's-
determine the interest on the investment, which is the next line item,
We've typically budgeted
$100,
$100.
anticipate $100 revenue.
And we've usually been
Pretty close.
within the range.
Yeah, that's on the money
Sometimes
line
it's a couple $100, sometimes it's less.
So there's two things that we didn't put down, one is current taxes we're leaving open, and one is highway grants, Better Back Roads, and Wyndham Regional, grant income.
Right, although I don't think we would really ever budget for that.
Okay,
Because remember, that's the reimbursement. we
yeah, I got
might-
sold on
Yeah, I don't
stuff.
think that's really
Okay,
something we would probably.
so just leave them blank, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, they're not,
The salt shed?
they're included in this for reporting purposes, I guess.
Right, that makes sense.
Although it's a little strange because in past years, I guess they've been lumped into a highway grants line usually. As I look at Old Town reports, there's usually been a highway grants revenue line, which just encompasses whatever money we were reimbursed for anything. A few years ago, that number was $95,000,
That was
which was
probably.
probably paving for
That's
Progressive Road or
Yeah.
something there.
Yeah.
Um,
I was trying to find it.
right, so then we'll move into the expenditures. Let's save the best for last. Summer highway salaries, there are summer highway salaries and winter highway salaries. At this point, we need to consider consolidating them as highway salaries because the $800, which is budgeted for winter highway salaries, is just for Mark to bring the grader out when he has to wing back snow piles and such on the road. And that was budgeted for $800 at another point. So the salary thing, we're gonna save the best for last. I'm gonna go into the other expenses if you don't mind. We'll come back to salaries. Okay, summer highway employee mileage. Again, that's not a budgeted item on here on a normal, because we're not unsure of that. Same thing with summer payroll taxes. That will go up as the salary has gone up. Right. Summer contract services and equipment. All right.
Well, there's a mistake there because the $32,000 represents the contract for the plowing. The additional
Right.
$21,000, I don't know if that was billed twice under winter materials, because you got sand here for 21,000, if you add 21 to the.
Summer contract
We're
services.
talking about summer.
I'm sorry, okay, I'm thinking winter, excuse me.
Okay, summer contract services. Summer contract services includes things such as hiring an arborist for a few days. It involves crack sealing. It involves paving. It involves
Everything other than the
ramp
winter.
work, ditching, yeah, all of those things that we have a contract. It involves the excavator and such.
For the summer highway material?
Summer contract and services.
Services. So it's basically all
The vendors,
the rental of equipment we're paying someone other than Mark to
right,
do things in the summer. Not material,
right.
but the labor and rental costs of machinery.
And that needs to go up and we were not sure how to approach how it's going up just because the cost of materials, fuel, supplies, went up, and this has been a step. Yeah. Mark, what you?
So, not that I wanna question that, but why do we think it needs to go up?
Because.
Because when I look at this, if we look strictly at this line item, we're under budget every year on that amount, on the $39,000.
I
A
do,
couple of years ago, we were
Yeah,
at $27,000.
$9,000
Last year, we were at $30,000.
$30,000.
This year, so far, if this number were accurate, that would project out to be something like $34,000.
Well, the reason that we did $39,000 is to be consistent every year. Some years you were gonna spend more, some you were gonna use less. That money can be rolled over.
Yep.
And it can be used for anything from paving, it's not a dedicated fund.
Right.
It could be for anything, whether it be striping the things or filling in the ditches on the side. That was a figure that we just chose at that time, all these years. And whatever was left over, we could appropriate to other funds if we needed, or just roll it over.
Okay, this includes the
That's
rental of
where
an
the-
excavator?
Yes, that's where the money for the excavator was gonna come out, was predicated on the funds we had not used in that $39,000. So at that $39,000 we use every year, if you only use $30,000, there was still $9,000 in that fund, which rolled over and rolled over. That's why if you don't have the amounts that you have actually in the fund right now, you're kind of like, you don't know how much you have. I mean, I could see where you're going, where you wanna set a budget, but it would be advantageous to know what you have in there to see what.
And how would I get that information?
From the treasurer. I mean, I can generate it tomorrow.
Well, you generated a report back on the 4th of November. And it is entitled Detailed Transaction Report.
Okay, that's exactly, and I did that for David. right, that showed the,
Tallies up thirty
That showed-
thousand $924.
Yep.
Basically all for rental equipment.
yes.
basically all for rental.
Yeah.
That's the grass cutter, that's everything that we use alongside the road.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, there
Good
was,
point.
there, I think we didn't do much, last year due to COVID, we slowed up just because we didn't know
So we got rentals of
Where we're
$30,000
gonna be at.
and
for
That's
monies and
sick.
they didn't want us doing stuff, you know, due to COVID. Then there was the year that Jimmy Rogers, I don't know how long ago that was.
Well, the 8,000 for the cement pad.
Well, yeah, that was set aside for cement pad, and we turned it over to the new South Stand shed, but what I was getting at was, when Jimmy was road commissioner, I couldn't do anything, he didn't want me to put any gravels on the road. So we didn't get a lot of conflict that year. You know.
That was 2015.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's different reasons, I think, for,
that's.
But going forward, the $39,000 was a comfortable amount at that time to cover all the expenses that we anticipated for the year, because you don't know from year to year what you're gonna encounter.
one of the things, whether we do it ourselves or whether it's hired out, we do have to, stone line ditches.
Yep.
That's gonna,
Is that gonna be granted, we gonna get grant money for that?
some of that will be granted and some of it won't. We're supposed to have, each town has a map made by Winter Regional with all the segments that are necessarily needed to stone line and culverts upgraded by 2025.
25,
So that's just something to keep in mind when we do it or hired out.
Does that cover the materials or equipment and materials?
The grants,
The grants,
the grant covers all of that,
all of it?
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
the whole expense, and then you gotta match, don't we have to match a certain amount?
Well, my
Yeah.
concern
Yeah,
is,
it's like an 80-20.
It is.
I don't see the town purchasing a excavator at this time. I think we're gonna be ending up doing a longer term rental. We have a lot of FEMA work coming up that we're gonna have to do besides our regular maintenance. I'm concerned. I think we rented the machine for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, how many weeks?
We've been
Altogether.
doing 1 month rental.
1 month.
The last time,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
sometimes.
I mean, I don't know if we're gonna wait to do some of the FEMA stuff until after July 1st next year. Because we have so many months, until we have 6 months of work to do. I'm a little concerned that that number is that a valid number going forward again? Not knowing,
The
What
other
the
thing
products-
is, on this same topic, is the cost of materials. Everything we purchase from here on out is gonna
Yeah.
be inflated. Fuels are gonna be inflated, the cost to make materials, the cost to truck those materials, all gonna be inflated.
and with ARPA money coming down and the infrastructure projects coming down, you're going to have a tight competition for rental equipment and materials. There's going to be a run on those needs.
I didn't mean to butt in, but, the culvert prices, since we purchased culverts and the price was up when they got them, it's gone up again. So,
And we'll talk about that on the next page, but yeah.
Sorry I interrupted you earlier.
No, that's.
That's,
All right, so summer contract services and equipment. Go ahead, Bruce.
that's what we should consider rent to own for exactly what
Or
Mark is
lease.
saying,
Lease,
or lease or rent to own. Because if we're gonna have a diminishing resources to pick from, it's just gonna make it more complicated, more expensive.
I don't know how we can afford that right now.
We got $30,000
Well, where'd you get that number from?
right there.
Where?
Unless I don't read well, $30,000, $30,924.77. It went entirely,
That's what was spent.
that was spent last year on equipment, correct, on rentals.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
That's
we do.
freaking
Is
nuts.
it cheaper by the
Right,
year?
although it was right, although
That's what I said.
I'm not convinced that 100% of that is equipment that could be replaced by a wheeled excavator. Some amount of this money for sure is trucking, is
Yeah,
dump
okay.
trucks.
So if it was $10,000.
Okay, I'm just saying, we don't know exactly what.
No, we don't, but we gotta find out. I mean, in as much as what we got going on next year, with all these.
We spent $35,772 in rental for the July storm already.
How much?
Wow.
$35,772.50 for the rental equipment as determined by FEMA as at this time.
And is it gonna get cheaper? I hardly doubt it.
Just letting you know. So we can still have,
So we
But
can look at the 2080 calculation
And-
or based on just that number in addition to anything else like that.
Exactly, which is.
And it shows like Key Mark's warning of how everything's gonna go up.
I guess I'm-
And availability of equipment.
And maybe this is to your point, I'm confused right now. Are we debating whether we're gonna buy a wheeled
no,
excavator?
we're not, I'm just saying
Or
that I
are we
think we need
debating what we're going to try to
to put in that
create
account.
as a budget?
I don't know what,
Highway.
I think we need to put a little more in the account for renting the equipment for more than a 4-week period in 2022-23. Maybe with the least up, that.
Well, the month, how much did it cost for the month? Was it $12,000 for the month?
6,000 was the 1 month rental for the excavator.
And $1,000 to move it?
1,000 to move it.
So you might wanna add another $7,000. That would just justify, the
I don't
extra
know,
month.
I mean, we
6
can,
times 12 is
you know what, you
$70,000.
can pencil in what we have in there right now, I just wanna go through the rest of it, I think you're all gonna have sticker shock, because we sat here for 2.5 hours on Monday and it doesn't look pretty.
Thank you for
So-
doing that.
So you know what,
So we're still on service
that's correct, and I don't really know what to say to do. Because we don't know how much is literally left, we've spent a bunch of money in this year that we had no idea we were gonna spend, and I'm just a little paranoid.
If I could add to that one comment, I went through and looked at workman's comp and potential insurance costs for a vehicle if we were to buy one, et cetera. But the workman's comp increase alone, we're gonna, instead of being where we are now at $815, it would be over $3,000.
Well, okay, when we talk
And there's
about
some other
renting or
general
not renting,
insurances.
but
So there's several $1,000s of increases just
just for
for
that.
that alone. For who? Huh?
Workman's comp for who?
Yeah, I don't know.
For whoever is full-time.
I don't know where that figure comes from, but with VLCT, I don't mean to change this, but VLCT, we're a privately owned insurance company by VLCT.
This came from their charts.
Oh, okay, so that's what they're saying?
Yeah.
Shall we pencil in the summer contract equipment at the same $39K?
but I thought you said everything's going up.
It is going up, I don't know how to tell you it's going up by, I don't know.
Well, then we need to go up a little bit rather than stay the same.
Well, which
How much, Gwen?
I don't know.
All right, look.
We're still on
Smart
summer
people.
contract services and equipment,
Stay
correct?
calm. The worst thing that can happen is we get to February, we gotta change the numbers. That's where it's at. I mean, we can't expect Dot or anybody that's been doing all this work. We've got 3 or 4 different grant opportunities to get money here, some's already in an account. And we got the others coming in. We haven't been told yet, or I don't know, I'm not up to date, as to how you gotta expend that money or when. Gave up and said, have patience, we'll let you know later how you can spend.
Every one of those grants have a 20% match, so that adds up.
Yep, it's sure true, that too. So this is complex.
you can see your wheels turning, David.
No, I'm just, I mean,
I'm having a
What
hard time running this.
no, and it's a complicated, but I guess I understand the feeling that everything is going up. But I do think if we could come to some kind of conclusion, and I don't know if we have the information to do this, we could come to some kind of conclusion around, I mean, has the cost of renting equipment gone up 10%, 20%, 50%? Has the cost of materials gone up 10%, 20%, 50%? Then we could at least look at the numbers that we've got, because what I will say is, you go back to last fiscal year, and I know we're all very impacted by the weather event we had and the FEMA reaction. But I think we need to be slightly careful about not overreacting
I
to
know,
that
you're right.
experience when we have had a process and numbers which historically over quite a while have worked pretty well with some fluctuation. I mean, I'll just point out last fiscal year, I know we ran a $62,000 deficit in the highway fund last year, but $72,000 of that was going over budget in paving, like we always do. So the rest of the budget, we were 10 grand under. We were actually under budget for the last fiscal year. Everything other than paving. So again, maybe the world has changed and maybe now we do need to be prepared that every year we're gonna have some FEMA event that's gonna cause us to have to spend thousands of dollars upfront that we have to wait to get reimbursed. But
We can always, yeah.
we,
This year, you're gonna need about $15,000 to offset what we don't get from FEMA.
At least.
Because we're gonna be close to $140,000 to $150,000.
right,
And
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
wind up being responsible for about 12% of that.
right, but that's, we still believe that that's all gonna get dealt with at least by the end of this fiscal year,
And not
We're
next
hoping,
fiscal
yeah.
year, yeah.
we think? Okay,
Well, yeah, I do think that we're gonna be, some of the work that has to be done in the mediations won't be done by July 1st, of course, that will carry over, but that's just part of a different calendar that FEMA works with. So if we were to take a look and even look at a 10% increase of
Right.
$3,900 or round it off to $4,000, that would mean
$39,000,
$39,000 plus.
bring it up to 42,900.
Yes.
But again, I guess my thing is, I mean, I'm not trying to talk us out of increasing the budget massively if it's appropriate, but I also think we kind of need to have a sense of what the number is,
And then what we can do then is break it down.
ideally,
Well, I would tend to think,
and maybe 10% is it. It might, I don't know, that's where, I mean, we could look at the cost of some of these material things and some of these services things and try to
Well, when we get
figure
down to,
out how much they've increased from year to year.
when we go down to summer highway material, I'll bring up some of the.
Well, basically, the $39,000 this year is right now, there's nothing to worry about because we're not gonna do any more work on the highways or the roads or anything else other than plowing. So we'll start in April or May, so that'll give us 2 or 3 months to work to get to June. And then we start the clock all over again. So whatever, that's why it's just advantageous to know what we have in that account right now.
Right.
So that we can say, do we have enough to cover us till June?
Right,
Well,
because
yeah.
what we don't know, I suppose,
Yeah.
and if we're not careful, and this is a very valid point. I mean, last year, like we say, last fiscal year, we ran a deficit in highways of $62,000. We had built up a surplus so that I don't think that's a problem,
Right.
but next year, when we've had to pay an additional $20,000 or whatever out of pocket for the FEMA work and whatever else, I don't know. We might, right, we do need to have some idea to project now so that we know, okay, we might need to budget more money next year to make up for the shortfall will come out of this fiscal year.
We did do $87,000 for Hill Road for paving last year. So that took a big chunk of our money because there was no grant money for that.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right.
okay.
So that's part of that
All right, so we do
62,000.
10%. And it makes that 42,900, we can always come back, which is right, we can come back.
That seems reasonable to put in for the moment, at least as a starting point.
Correct.
So what is it,
we get some more
42.5?
information. Sorry.
42,900,
percentages are just gonna go to 43.
Yeah.
make it 43,000.
I mean,
Okay,
you know,
makes- it
for
makes nice
$100.
zero numbers.
So we have to, basically, we can change this right up to town meeting if we have to.
Well,
Yeah, we can
what's
look
it
at
on
it.
the
Well-
page in the book?
And
Well-
we go to print and we vote.
Yeah.
Okay,
We set
thing,
the tax, but we vote to set the tax rate before
That's true.
the February 28th date.
I'm gonna see if I can get the figures
no, we
for
don't.
what we
No,
have.
I mean, remember, this is the budget for next
Next
fiscal
year.
year. This is the budget which
July.
ultimately will be voted on at town meeting.
28th, February 28th.
Right, and at town meeting, this can be amended, however.
That's
You
correct.
can amend it, yes.
Up or down, but wasn't
Correct.
nice.
But the thing I'll point out additionally is, if we end up in a situation where we're forced to do an Australian ballot, there will no longer be that option. So we don't, we
will-
want to avoid that,
Yes.
obviously, for
Yeah.
lots of reasons.
That
Right.
does make it interesting. We'd have to change the Australian ballot, I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that.
Well, I'd say
it's not worth worrying about.
The select board, if they have to, they have the authority to borrow. So, you know, that's the worst case scenario.
That's true, if we're in the hole, we can borrow.
All right, let's move on
And make
then
up
to highway salt shed. There is an expense of
So what is that?
747.77.
Right.
And I guess that was, money that you paid for.
That's again, they've added because we've spent some money towards that, this is probably our portion of the $93,000 or whatever, $9,300 that we got back.
This is where we should put our match in. We have to come up with 80, how much is a
Well,
match?
I mean, I guess what I'd say is we don't know. I mean, it could be $75,000, it could be more than.
Well, we went from
Until the
188,
project goes out to bid, we don't know what the actual cost of the thing is going to be. Based on the most recent estimate, our portion of all of the grants, assuming we get all of the grants, there's one grant that we're not even gonna know whether we've gotten until March. But assuming we get that grant, with the supplemental grant that we got already and the original grant that you guys got years ago, our portion of all that match ends up being about $75,000 probably.
alright, we started at 47. And so with the additional money that you're hoping for grants.
Yeah, we got an additional 73
Yep.
net to us, which ends up being about 25-ish, let's say. And then this last grant, if we get it, our match is in the neighborhood of $9,000, something like that.
So the 75 is all salt and sand shed?
That we have to match, yes. Because it went
For a
from,
shed?
yeah, it went from 188,000 to now, what is the, it's closer to
It's
250.
now, close to, when the original cost to do the whole thing was, the original cost to construct it was $211,000.
Right, and now it was 188.
Now it's 288 or something like that.
Yeah, that's what's going on.
Because lumber and everything is gone.
Yeah.
The lumber could come down too.
And again, whatever, until the thing goes out to bid, we don't know if anybody's even gonna bid to do it for that.
That's true.
We might find out the actual best bid we get for it is a lot more than that.
In which case, we might decide to
We
drop
might
the
decide we
project.
can't do it, exactly.
However, we still should have some match in here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it will take Archie feels that once the construction contracts are in, it will take about 6 months to construct top to bottom. Finished. That's within the fiscal year.
So, all right, so
So
you
you're
got
gonna
that.
have to have your match. Now, you can't get a loan on a match. You're supposed to have it.
Right.
I think I read that somewhere recently as well.
You
Yeah.
can't take a loan on the match. That's I've ever read.
So this is.
So again, I guess, I gotta say, I'm, at this point, I'm not even sure that this is worth wasting our time.
Yeah, this is really.
Until we know what we have in all of our accounts accurately, how are we gonna figure any of this out?
Plus, you got money coming in.
Or we decide now, let's just skip past the grant related match things and the things that we don't have, that with more information, we could make a more informed decision and just try to go through the items that are more strictly
I think we can probably
budgeted
do
year
that
to year,
data.
and we can decide what
Yeah.
increases we wanna make.
Until we
to
get a
those.
report.
I think passing on some of these and coming back
Spending our
it is,
wheels
yep, we're gonna
unnecessarily.
spend our, yep. So I would skip through the highway salt shed, sand shed, knowing that we might have to come up with a $75,000 match. This August 2021 flood contract services, this amount here, I guess it was a line item that was pulled out at this time to say that was the amount that was spent on the FEMA related floods. Again, nothing that we had budgeted for, so again, we probably wouldn't be budgeting again for, I don't know, right?
Does it need constant repair or maintenance to hold it up?
Well, August, this is the flood contract services, the line item she pulled, that was pulled out of the, it's in,
Which, on page
It's on
five?
page 5. It's August 2021 flood
Flood
materials.
materials.
It goes along with August 2021 flood contract
Right,
services.
right, okay,
They just added these in because these are actual expense
Yeah.
lines that we have had,
right,
but there was no corresponding budget for them.
right.
Because of course, we've never budgeted for
Yeah.
a flood.
I
Right, so that's what we've already spent with FEMA?
yes.
Okay.
Well, that was as of a
Far as,
while ago.
No, we've spent totally $87,413.
So far, yeah.
In theory, these numbers that she included, this was from when she generated this, which was supposedly 4 months, which would have been what, July, August?
July, August, September,
Maybe the
October.
end of October,
Yeah.
maybe.
Alright.
So
Alright,
we're just gonna ignore those for now?
right now, we're gonna move past it and go down to summer highway material.
So, right.
The material is a concern now. I read
Oh,
in the newspaper, and I don't know how accurate it is, but Newfane's reported that material has gone up 40 to 50% on gravel and rock and such. When I said something to Archie about that, he said, well, I don't know where they got their numbers from, it's not that much, but it has gone up and will continue to go up. So.
How much is it going up?
Archie saying.
Okay, he suggested that the amount to budget would be $34,000
for summer highway
for
material?
summer highway material. That would be within a range between $30,000 and $34,000. He said 30 is what we've already spent, so I mean, looking at the numbers, but when we were here, this was a concern. He said that you should probably budget not $21,000, but to go up to $34,000.
All right, so.
Well, and it does look like the last fiscal year, even before any floods or stuff happened, we spent almost 34.
Right,
Yeah,
and so Archie, we were doing the same thing on Monday night. We were saying, well, how are we gonna figure it out? So let's look at what happened a couple of years ago. So that was already 33.6. So we've been budgeting 21, it wasn't enough then, so if we budget 34 for the year 22-23.
but that isn't a market, that isn't what you would call a substantial increase in materials from the actual of last year to this year, to the proposed budget. It's only going up
What?
a little bit.
No, it's going up a lot. I mean, it's going
Yeah, it's
from
going from
21 to
21.
34. It's going up, whatever that
It's
is.
13,000.
Last year, actually,
We budgeted 21,
right, actually spent 33.6, correct?
correct.
Okay,
So we're
And you're
saying,
going to
but then
34.
you budgeted 21 again,
okay,
and we've already spent 30.
yes, okay.
So we're saying that this number should be increased for 2022, 23 to
Of that
34,000.
30, excuse me, of that 30 that you're showing as a budget, does that take into consideration the twin billing that we got for 15,000? So would that take that
That,
30,000?
this is, I don't know,
Because there was some duplicate billing and we got the check today for
Oh,
it.
the
Oh, you
15,
got the
the 15 to Archie,
Right.
okay.
So does that 30,000 reflect the double
I
bill?
don't know.
who knows? We don't have a treasurer, excuse me, we don't have a treasurer here.
I don't know.
So can I ask one question before? I mean, I
Yeah,
think we should go based on
Not the
Archie's.
thing to say.
Archie is closer to this and has a better sense of it than any of us do. Before we put the 34 in, can I just ask, did you have discussions about winter materials versus summer materials?
The only
And
thing,
since
winter
nowadays,
material,
So-
it's
the
hard to
salt,
separate them.
and sand
That's pretty
are
good cover.
only winter materials, salt and sand. One year, the winter material list was significantly high, like 50-something thousand, where it shouldn't have been because
Good.
he felt that the summer material, which was used for an early frost,
Right,
mud season,
okay,
was put in the wrong category. So winter
Oh.
materials is salt and sand,
That's it.
that's it.
okay,
Which at the time that was also be going up according with everything.
right, okay, so do we wanna put in 34,000 for summer materials for now?
Yes.
Will that include the gravel that's gonna be needed to
That's summer
upgrade the
material.
culvert, the culverts and stuff?
Yeah, that'll be ditch stone, it'll be road
Okay.
gravel, it'll
Yeah.
be anything summer
That we've been using in the
road
past.
maintenance.
All right, then we follow that one up with highway emergency materials, and I'm not sure what that is, it says up in 12/27/20. And I don't know if that was just breaking out FEMA numbers somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's safe to assume all of these things that have come up that have either emergency or flood materials are things that are expenses that we have incurred for which there was no corresponding budget line. Or that Samara thought
We need to
we should
look at.
realize that we have these costs and factor that into our thinking, however we so choose.
Looks like.
All right, so then we move on to,
So you're not budgeting anything for highway emergency?
not this time,
Yeah, I mean, it's not,
Yeah.
well, I mean, it's not a budget, it's not a line item we've normally had a budget for. Again, that's not to say we shouldn't, but we just haven't historically.
all right, then we come to the next line and it says August flood materials, 39,000. So again, that is FEMA related, so I'm just gonna put the word FEMA here and not put a financial number in that spot at this time.
I'm sorry, what number? Can't
Where it
That's
says
in here.
August 2021
Yeah.
flood materials.
Right, okay,
Fifth from the bottom.
yeah, no, okay.
Different pages, different handouts have on different pages.
Yeah, it's
I just was assuming we were already going to the next one. I'm sorry.
Okay, the next one is winter salaries. I started off talking about salaries, and this winter salaries probably line will be deleted in 2022-23, because that was just a breakout of extra money to pay for Mark to bring the grader out to knock down the snow. He doesn't do much winter salary work. Right, Mark, am I correct? That's what that was for.
Right, yeah.
So he should just do a line item for highway salaries.
Correct. So that will be dropped to 0.
Okay,
And therefore winter payroll taxes, we're not
Would be
gonna
zero.
have 0 at this time because it's not gonna be broken out in that respect. Here's the next item, the winter contract services and equipment. We're working with a bid price for the plowing and salt, the plowing, I should say. And that is for 33,000, just to make sure that I.
34 or something.
What was it?
I don't have it in front of
I
me.
do,
It was
somewhere.
34, 800 or
That's FEMA.
34, 200. It's more than 33, it's 34 something, I believe.
Yeah, I have a copy.
I remember it was. Should have one lane.
You should probably put 35,000.
And he was gonna use two horses.
Yeah, I think it should, at this point, it should go up at least 35.
Well, yeah, Archie did say that the plowing expenses, he thought with fuel, that it should go to 37,000 for the plowing contract to be prepared.
37?
To 37, correct. He felt that the 51,041 was work done to repair roads in the winter. On Christmas Day, there was a heavy rain after a very large snowstorm, and all the culverts got plugged, and so they went out and they had to put material, and it was in the winter, but still, it's summer supplies, and it was placed in the wrong category.
So that 51 goes in summer? Or was that actually winter?
That was things that were put in
What?
winter before. Well, right, although here's what I'll say, in defense of the treasurers, at no point I mean, we've always called this winter contract services and equipment. I mean, I know that maybe people have wanted to think of that as only plowing, but that's not what the that's not what the line item is, the expense line item.
Expense
If
line item,
if we wanna make that purely plowing and sanding services.
plowing, salting and
That makes
sanding.
sense.
That's
And lump everything else that happens equipment wise under
Contract.
summer
Yes.
contract services, or just we
Well,
get rid of the
just highway
seasonal
services.
tag
Yeah.
altogether
Well, I
and
agree.
call it just contract services.
It's just-
I can understand why the treasurers put those costs under what
Sure,
they did.
time of the year,
Right,
it was
exactly.
December 25th
And
and
so-
6th.
Well, no, that original $33,000 was basically just for plowing.
And then
Yeah.
Archie, who was on the select
Yeah.
board, come back and
And the
said
sand
that.
was the one underneath it.
Right.
And that was just for the winter sand.
And in a perfect world, if we had a better handle on what we thought was predictable and what some of these costs were, we could budget both the plowing money and an additional however much money for winter contract services and equipment. I mean, obviously, we don't really have any sense of what that will be. So it's probably best for us just to make this the plowing and sanding
Mhm,
alone and
mhm.
budget 37,000 for the next fiscal year.
Is that under what, is that the next one where it says
For change-
winter materials, is that the same thing?
No,
Well-
I think that is the salt and the sand, the rest of the
No.
contract.
Yeah,
So
so
they-
that makes a little more sense.
Then this, the heading should be changed in the treasurer note.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the course of this, in addition to stuff that Dot's talking about that we haven't gotten to, I think there will probably be requests to change a lot of heading on expense line items.
Isn't this what the Samara was pointing to before she got done, was trying to eliminate too many line items, that it was getting way too confusing? Did I understand that correctly?
I think so, yeah, and I think just making them more accurate,
There you go.
which I think we're in the I mean, some of what we're discussing is just making the descriptions of these and the corresponding money that we've budgeted more accurate to the way things
Go,
are now
yeah,
than they might have a few years ago.
other than we don't really wanna separate it like paper clips, pencils, paper, anything like that.
Right.
We just wanna try and keep it consolidated, so
That's called office supplies.
And if we're consistently seeing, like we did with winter contract services, if we're consistently seeing, or maybe that's not a good example, maybe summer contract services is a better example, or materials is a better example. If we're consistently seeing that we're spending way more than we've budgeted year to year, we should be adjusting the budget to try to be more accurate.
Right. So the plowing contract, which involves maintaining winter roads, 33,000 previously, 37,000
37.
suggested. Is that,
And the
Yeah.
sand,
Okay with me.
$37,000. Now, he did not feel that he felt that our budget for winter materials, which would be sand and salt,
right,
should be fine at 21.
which is what was
It
bid,
is, it's flat,
it was bid at
How close did we come to that number?
17,000,
last time,
So far.
that's $4,000, yeah, there it is.
17, 18.
Well, it's not a flat, I mean, it's bid at
About
a,
4,000 less, we said.
but we have a,
How much we use.
right, exactly, so, you know.
Depends on the winter.
There could be winters where we do end up.
yeah, it's
spending more than
weather
this.
related.
And
Luckily,
then,
we
and then
haven't
of course, the
recently.
price of salt per ton and sand per yard.
Yeah.
Right, that changes.
Well, salt this year's been pretty stable,
Yeah,
but sand has gone,
it'll be different next year.
in fact, sand is even gonna go higher because the ability to find sand is slowly but surely drying up.
Nobody to truck it.
There's no place to get it.
But all that being said, Archie thought we would probably be
21,
okay with
yeah.
sticking with 21 for.
That's
another year.
correct,
Okay.
sand and salt, he thought 21 was fine. And of course, the town shed electric, which was the next item, is, you know, how can we estimate that? We thought that we were budgeting 450, that would also be sufficient going
Yeah.
forward. The town shed maintenance, we talked about some roof problems that are leaking and some maintenance things. Might wanna keep the $1,000 in there, if you feel that we could, if we need to cut $500, you could cut it from this place. We could probably fix the roof for 500, but
I would suggest that we not do that because,
We'll need that.
we're gonna have, hopefully, by the time this budget goes in or not that long after, we're gonna have the new salt and sand shed, which one of the things we have done, I mean, you know, we have committed to making sure we maintain that facility moving forward.
okay, the shed
So,
maintenance, I was
the
thinking
shed-
the garage, I was thinking the garage.
Well, it's all, I
Yeah,
mean,
but
I
same
think it's
thing.
all, once we have, I mean, right now, we don't necessarily do a lot with it, and hopefully, once it's new, we won't necessarily.
Right.
But if we take it out now, it's just something that I think a year or two
So
from
we're just
now,
putting it back in.
we're gonna have to be putting back in,
Right.
so I think we should.
And you
stick
can
with
roll it over.
1,000.
The worst thing.
One
that happens
thousand.
is just
It's not,
big bucks.
Okay, all right, we'll keep that the same. Seminars, highway for employees, last year there, because of COVID, there wasn't much, it's certainly a minor amount, I would keep that budgeted,
It's 200.
$200.
I'm keeping 1,000, okay.
Okay, highway insurance expenses, now. It look like it's twice as much being budgeted than we need.
Well, no,
no, remember, this is the thing that we had the
Right,
15-minute conversation about last.
okay, I have it here,
That's where this number came from.
the salt shed,
Guy got all of the numbers of what our insurance is going to be, minus the credit that we're going to get, the one-time credit. We discussed how we would break it down,
And those are
what we would apply to the Fund 1 and what we would apply to the highway.
okay, 7.
So that's where the 4436 came from,
Alright,
Good.
which is an increase of, again, remember, I know that whatever the previous fiscal year, we have that we spent 1810, but if we look back at the insurance line item for the Fund 1, because we pay it all together.
Right, that's just like 9,000.
You know, that was also, I mean, I didn't, this is based on numbers that Guy got from VLCT, from passive.
yeah, I'm looking at
What we-
passive coverage plus, and it
That's
says
the
here,
highway
town
management
garage,
credits.
$784, and town salt shed, $39.22. The total property tax for the town is $4,407. So if you were breaking down the town garage and the town salt shed, it would be around $800 something, not $4,000.
No, that's, you gotta figure in workman's comp, you have to figure in,
Right.
I've got it
But
right.
not just building insurance then.
The highway is 5239 total,
We-
workman's comp.
We literally spent 15 minutes discussing.
Yes, and then we
At the
backed
last
out the
meeting.
credits, and it was
I
46.
remember that, but I'm
Yeah,
just
that
looking at
wasn't-
this form and
Okay.
I'm mistaken.
No, it's like Dot's saying, there, it wasn't really broken into specific categories. When you go and look at the report that somehow I got from somebody that sent it.
Right.
Yeah, I sent, I got it.
There are breakdowns which make it hard to determine which is town, which is not.
Okay. All right, well, gotcha. All right, so $4,000
Even?
as
So
it
these,
was.
so these two numbers are not,
Level.
4436.
what was that?
So
4436.
And then it was 1.5 years, $436 next to it.
That was after everything.
that's how
was
much
back
we
up.
increased from the last
Oh,
budget.
okay, okay.
So the town highway insurance is how much?
4436.
So I don't wanna jump all over this, but we do have a new set of sheets, right, that we're all
I'm not
working
looking,
from,
no, I'm not
that's
working.
right.
sent out, that
That's this.
was the
That's what I'm
source of this whole discussion.
Right,
Alright.
that's what I'm using.
I'm using what I
latest and
brought away,
greatest.
I'm working with the spreadsheet. That's where my numbers were.
4436. Storm management. Oh, that's what we have to pay annually. We pay to Wyndham Regional Commission, that's $500
Yeah, the
for
one
that
that
building a better roads grant or something.
we keep forgetting to pay
Yeah.
most years.
To be able
Nice.
to, to be able to apply.
It's the
Each year
application
we
fee.
forget to pay it.
Well, they
Okay,
forget
here
too.
it is, I'm sorry, yes, there's your number in there.
Although we've been we've been budgeting 1,100 or something. I'm not really sure that we've had to pay more than 500 though.
No, I don't know if that was because we missed the
I don't know.
payment, but
I think
it's basically $500 for an application fee every year.
No, I guess we really only added that a couple of years ago. No, it's there.
I think for the big towns, it was a larger sum. For our town was.
Yeah, everything was basically on-
We were.
on population.
Yeah.
I think we should leave it at 1140. though.
Okay. Leave it 1140,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a change first.
There was a
Highway,
sync there was a reason.
stormwater management
1146.
permits.
Okay, yeah, I'm with it.
Equipment, fuel, parts and maintenance. The equipment, fuel, parts and maintenance.
We spent
It was
$3,000 last year.
concerned to put it up to 4.5, $4,500, which would be an increase of $500 to cover the increase in gas prices that we see coming forward. So that's a $500 increase. Okay, road signs and miscellaneous, Mark felt that, we don't know what you spent 75 cents on, Mark?
Probably,
Stamps.
nuts, bolts, washers.
Okay,
Bolts and washers.
You could even, how many bolts could you even buy for 75 cents?
Don't know.
Depends on-
That's crazy,
Depends on where you go.
49 cents a piece.
You buy one of each, it's 75, to buy a box of 100, and it's the smaller
$2.
amount.
I think that's a typo.
alright, so, road sign miscellaneous, $1,500. We are upgrading the roads, they have to be larger and, with reflective ink, so as they get replaced, that's where the costs come in, when they are handicap signs and things like that.
Yeah.
we spend. Alright, culverts, this was a real.
So sorry, we're gonna keep it
1,500.
15, okay.
Yep.
Cause you gotta upgrade things.
Okay, culverts. Mr. Clark felt that the culvert amount should be increased to $6,000. The price increases have been fairly steep and fairly rapid oncoming. We were talking about the work that we have to do, and we need, we spend $980 on 2 3-foot culverts. Well, we need to put in 2 more, and those prices now, those culverts are now over $1,000 each, so we thought that $6,000 should help us with the culverts issues. We do have 10 culverts in inventory right now down at the stockyard for the smaller ones. But there are mitigation issues with that they want us to increase them, so if we have some in stock, we've got a good price on it now. But if we have to replace some of those other, as they get used up in the FEMA mitigation, then it's gonna cost more and more. So $6,000 was his suggestion, is that one that we can live with?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
When we do the FEMA, when we have to put a culvert in, that, because we had to replace something as part of the storm damage,
We already had it.
what do we get reimbursed? What do we get to put in for the cost of that culvert?
We get the
for
cost to
reimbursement?
update it to the specs that the V-Trans wants right now.
No, it's
No,
not,
he's
not
talking
the
about
gas
That's
price.
not what I'm asking.
Oh, he's talking
Do
about
we
price.
get reimbursed the price we paid for it 3 years ago?
Or
Or the
now.
cost of what it is
Now.
now?
They wanna
To
see,
replace
they
it.
wanna see
They
the
wanna
the
see the
slips where
receipt.
you
Yeah,
We have to give them the invoice.
Yeah,
And the fact that we're not gonna get paid back 100%, you have to figure that we're getting a percentage of it back.
Yeah,
Right.
they don't wanna see invoices,
Yeah,
so-
they want invoice.
okay, and that's fair, that's
And-
fair enough, just I guess it, yeah, right, all the more reason that we
Buy new
need
one,
to
geez.
increase this.
Save the old.
Well, if they were available more readily,
Right,
it
they're
would
not.
be an argument to not stockpile any of them.
Correct.
Other than.
But again, that's assuming that we're just sitting around waiting for a FEMA event to happen, where we have to use them, which.
The
we don't have
meeting
to do.
Yeah, we went through in Dover, was there, there's these new mitigation, that they want you to upgrade ahead of, floods and high water events, so, you know, if you.
We're hoping to get
It's
some
a
grants,
grant situation where
get
you
those
buy it,
culverts in,
put it in and hopefully get paid for the bulk of that,
right.
that.
We're gonna look at, I have to work with the FEMA on projecting the cost of the mitigations that they will cover. And if it's financially responsible, we will order the new price ones, let FEMA cover it and save hours for what we have to do on our regular maintenance.
Yeah,
So we'll
right.
see how it goes. Keep an
Just a
eye
lot of questions.
eyes
It's
more on
tricky,
it.
yeah,
It really
it's
is.
a very tricky thing.
All right, so that's, where were we, $6,000, okay. All right, if you're going to carry money forward to do paving with the cost of petroleum products and such, the ratio from what you were putting down at 30,000 a year, he suggested that be increased to $45,000.
Yep.
Where do we have to do paving? Well, there are two particular areas, one up on Grassy Brook Road near where the white barn is. The road is starting to crumble and cave in, and after winter plowing, it might be worse. And then the corner past Cynthia's Horses, as you come around towards that little red house,
Uh-huh.
the hillside, if you're going towards the Green Iron Bridge
Yeah.
from here,
Yeah, it's all,
it's all broken up, and it's similar to what happened on Hill Road where they have to grind down and replace the
Yeah.
base and everything else. So those would be two projects that, but the cost of petroleums and that are also going up. So he did suggest the 15,000, but this is up to the select board. It is steep.
And depends on if we have to do it now or not, or do like when we were paving, where we waited a year or so for the prices to come down, remember we did that? We might not be able to do that.
well, what money you have, you can roll over and we will get a matching grant at some point up to
Right.
$75,000.
Right, Archie just wants to look at when we're in the paving cycle.
Yeah,
Because we haven't gotten a grant in a few years, so he said to be prepared
Yeah.
for it, you might want to, that's what he suggested,
Bump it up a
putting in
bit.
the extra money this year, if we can. And if we have to fine tune it at another point, drop it back down next year, but he does feel that this is something that you do, you know.
well, I think the reality though is that if the cost of, I mean, like, I'm sure I believe in that, if the cost of paving materials and stuff has gone up like that, I mean, we've always historically budgeted, or for a while, we've budgeted $30,000 a year, knowing that every few years, that will, between that and the money we get, that will build up enough that we can afford to do a section. But the base cost of that is probably now $45,000 a year to year.
Plus, we've used most of our paving money.
Right, realistically, we probably will not, I mean, I can't imagine, especially with all the other commitments that we've got going, I can't really imagine a scenario, quite frankly, where we're gonna have enough money to pave anything next year.
Unless Mr. Art was gonna come and pay for it.
Exactly, well, we're, I don't know, whenever the infrastructure stuff
We
happens.
just got estimates for FEMA for the disrupted, pavement.
Oh, yeah, right,
Putney Mountain, and that's about 300 feet in length, 2 lanes, not quite 2 lanes in one section, and that was 26.5.
That's 300 feet?
But that's also, removing jagged.
Removing
Yeah,
a lot of,
yeah.
yeah.
No, it gives you an idea of what's going on.
But that's, yeah, just to give you an idea.
And another
I'm-
$2,700 to fix the apron to the bridge deck on the T where Putney Mountain
Yeah.
is, so.
I mean, I think this makes sense. In the absence of more information, I think that this is the best thing we can do at this point is say, okay, things that we've historically budgeted X for are now we now think probably cost however much more, so we should budget that much more
Okay.
until
So
we-
45 is what you said?
until we have more information that changes our mind in
In terms of,
one
in
direction or
terms of
another.
revenue.
Thank you, yes. Okay, bridge maintenance, that is small minor repairs, also, we get billed by the Newbrook Fire Department, they come and they hose off the winter salt and sand at the Green Iron Bridge, the Papoose Lane, the T Bridge, and I don't know if they do the
Okay,
one
good.
right here, but they wash, do they spray the one up here too?
Well, yeah, they clean it, but I thought it was $9,000 they charged us.
No, that's
That's
mutual
something
aid,
No, that's the,
That's-
you're talking about,
mutual aid or something.
We have mutual aid, then there's also $9,000
Right.
Right,
that we give to,
Right,
so now we're giving, and an additional 3,000?
this has been on here, bridge maintenance.
Yes, okay,
We've always budgeted.
yeah,
Three thousand, and that includes minor repairs and they're hosing it off.
okay.
Although I'll say as just a point of reference, going back as far as I have town reports and stuff, I don't show that we've ever spent anything for that expense item.
I don't know where they're pulling the money out of then, because they do come and do it.
There's got
I remember one day driving by and they'd be in a hole.
Yeah, they.
I mean, like with many things, it's also, aside from the washing, we should be budgeting for repairs should we need to do them to.
Right, and then we are
Bridges.
budgeting, sure, that does include repairs.
So I think that makes sense. So we're gonna leave that at 3,000?
Right, and I don't know, yeah,
How much?
3,000, remaining the same. All right, next item, expense, I guess, was the match to a paving grant, which we don't have to worry about at this time,
Yes.
so that's nothing. Parker Road grant expenses, we will not be worrying about. The bond principal is not changing, that is still $10,000.
Yep.
With the same interest
Yep.
of 3860. And your question,
how long?
how many more years do we have
well,
on
the
this?
interest was 1759.60
but-
last year.
Yeah, there was a
No, that's just
sequestration,
for the 4 months.
Oh, it's 1 month,
Yeah.
okay, so that
Yeah,
was
Last year was
61.
36,000.
Okay.
so it's still the same, yeah.
How many, was it a 10-year?
Yeah, it's, I think we got 8 years left. And again, these are numbers that that we need to get, because if we're paying $10,000 a year plus 3,000 interest, and we can't pay it off early because it's still the same penalty, you know, no matter what you do. So we've used that as a backup money, and we're paying the loan off every year.
Yeah,
It's like having a home equity loan,
it should be less a little bit every year.
yes,
Because the principal balance upon which the interest
Exactly,
is going down.
Yep.
So if you use,
so it was $100,000, and I'm thinking that it should be substantially less, but
Yeah.
I don't, some of these numbers
It does
don't
look
make
like
a lot of
it's
sense to me.
for what it's worth, it has.
Yeah.
Using the reports again, that.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 years ago, actual was 3950,
okay, yeah,
and last year actual was 3661.
yeah, I remember when Samara was
So
giving us a
it's-
presentation back when
Presumably it has gone down.
standard loan, and so as the balance, as time passes, the expense of the town goes down.
Yeah.
Right. Right, it was 4228 for years.
But that was that law with the sequestration, whatever it was, that during the Clinton administration, there was.
So that being, oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
I was gonna say, that being said, not that this makes a huge difference, but I would suggest that we make that bond interest 3,500. Rather than
That's good, yes,
3860.
I agree with that. It's not
Because if
right.
last year's was 3661,
Right,
it's bound to go down probably below 3,500.
All right, everybody counts, thanks,
3,500.
that's a good idea, David.
So you think
So
what,
it's gonna take
30?
more than 8 years to pay that?
3,500,
3,500 for bond interest.
So what, our payoff is about 30, 5 last year, you said that guy?
That's.
I don't know what we, you know, without looking at it, it's really pure speculation. We use that money as part of showing how much we have in the highway department, but we're paying it back each year.
Yeah.
So basically, it should be reduced by the 10 grand and the 3,000 for interest. So you take $13,000 out of that fund every year. So instead of having $100,000, maybe you only have 60,000,
Oh,
you know, over
from an
3
accounting
years.
perspective,
Yeah.
it should be at least the 1,300 is an expense. I'm sorry, the interest is an expense, whereas
Right,
the principal amount will
Right.
go down.
and the bond that we're paying back $10,000 a year.
Right, we can't get out early.
No, not without, you pay the same penalty.
Penalty.
So the best thing is just to use it there as a safeguard, you know.
Okay. So we're now gonna go back to the previous page and we talk about salaries. Okay.
Almost.
Alright, so we have 30 hours, $30, 52 weeks, 46.8.
Yep.
And then,
We're back on page 5, summer highway salaries, but I think we're gonna rename just highway salaries.
Yeah, that would be the start.
plus a 5% IRA,
Match.
it's additional $2,340. Which is $49,140 for one salary.
49 what?
49,140. And there is occasion for Mark's father to work and assist him throughout the year at a different rate scale. And I'm not exactly sure where his salary gets.
It was part of the summer highway salaries, we
Yeah, I think
included
it
everything
was.
in
All
there.
right, so,
Usually all lumped together, probably.
all right, so let's go look, what was the summer highway salaries and schedule?
You said 49,140.
I said 49,140, but what was it before that?
It was 17 and 8,
17.
so $17,800 between winter and summer last year.
17.
It says,
That's winter.
17.8.
That's the winter one, that's the
$17,800.
Cancel out the winter one
Right.
and make it a one.
I have 17.
Well, then there's also the she's adding
800.
800.
Oh, yeah, for winter,
salaries.
yeah, okay.
So 49,140 minus 17,800 means that we need to budget an additional $31,340.
So sorry, what are we budgeting for
I was
Mark's
looking at,
father,
okay, I was,
essentially, the second person?
So for
Because we're budgeting the overall number, we can then figure out how much of an increase that is, but we're budgeting the top line number, so.
So
49,140 plus.
So just cross out summer and put highway salaries.
yes,
Winter and highway salaries, don't you?
well, now we're trying to
Also,
get the
winter.
total.
Mark, what's your father's, the rate that we pay your father?
17.
17, okay. I mean, I don't
I have
remember
these.
at the moment how many hours we might have.
Yeah, it has
Estimated
quite
for that.
randomly,
well,
Yeah.
recently it was recently we did hour-wise 131 hours worked yearly. This year, his father. Okay, I'm looking at the pay period through October 7th, 2021, which has in it, I'm looking at Mark's father's Everett A bills. And it says here, number of hours for the year to date has been 131 hours, or 24 $2,436 at this time. So probably $3,000, I'm probably looking at maybe $3,000 a year to Everett A bill.
So a total of about 52 grand.
Well, then does that count the 5%, Ira?
Well, but, so.
Yes.
Doesn't get it.
Okay,
No,
no,
for the-
everything, okay, the 52 is.
Not that we don't necessarily wanna take this into account, but presumably that's a lot of FEMA time, right, Mark?
Yeah, and this, under this,
So that might be a little bit skewed for a normal year.
Yeah, all right.
yeah,
Do you,
I mean, is it safe to say your dad might help you for what, a couple hours a week, 1 hour a week on average in a normal period, do you
So
think?
50 hours, you think?
yeah, like a whole day, every, you know. It's not a lot, it's more,
Couple of days a month, maybe?
yeah, yeah, it's.
I mean, I'm just,
So.
So Mark was at 49, right?
That's with everything.
I mean, that ends up being about the same if we work that out, so.
Right.
So what'd you say, 52 for Mark and instead?
That's what I have.
Oh,
Okay. 52, 140.
So what's the total for highway salaries?
We're just.
We're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. I think we say 52,000 for the whole thing.
that,
It's not gonna be far off, I mean, whatever we might be.
so
Okay.
52,000?
52,000.
All right.
All right, where am I looking?
So sum up, so payroll taxes.
Payroll taxes are a fractional part of that amount.
Right, yeah, it's what we have to match with FICA and on Medicare, which is 15%, we do 7%. So times 7, I don't have a calculator.
It's.
So our match would be 7% of that 52,000.
Yeah, it's not
It's
a little more than.
7.5 actually.
7.5, is it 7.5 or
Yeah.
7.25 or something like that?
Yeah, something 7.5, it's 15% in.
Oh, so you
$3,900.
the tax highway?
Yeah.
3,900.
Yeah, the payroll tax
That's
highway?
7.5.
So some of payroll tax will just be payroll tax.
Right, just will be payroll tax.
And that's how much? What'd you say it was?
$3,900.
3,900.
Okay.
So that's just payroll tax highway, right?
Yep. So we do the payroll tax on the bottom, we get rid of that.
Is that a combination 7.5 of Medicare and the?
Medicare and Social Security, that's everything, it's 15%. Basically, it's just the 15% for the Social Security and Medicare.
Okay.
All right,
And we pay 7.
7.5.
all right, so we got $52,000 increase for highway salaries. We have, the mileage will probably remain the same, approximately $1,500 a year. I'm gonna budget for this.
Well, the mileage, I have a question, if, Mark, when we pay you mileage, is it for your vehicle? Because if you're claiming your vehicle, you can't claim the mileage, you
Right.
gotta claim one or the other.
I
That's the tax law.
usually just, if I'm working, I get paid by the hour.
Yeah.
Vehicle not included, just mileage for like gas and
Okay,
maintenance.
alright, yeah, no, I just wanted.
If I'm towing a trailer or got something in the truck,
Yeah.
I use the truck as a tool for the town,
Okay,
otherwise it's just.
right, but if you're using if you're using it for a town truck, then you can't claim mileage.
Right,
Okay,
right, so the mileage is checking roads mostly.
Okay. no, I just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware of that.
So, in the past, it was $1,662, hasn't been budgeted for, I'd like to budget $1,500 out for it.
I agree.
1,500 for
Yes, sir.
mileage?
Yes.
That's gonna be summer and,
It's,
Yes.
yeah, it's gonna be highway employee mileage, no more
Okay,
summer,
yeah.
winter,
that's 1,500.
correct. All right, we did, yeah, because I'm working off the two sheets here, let me make sure, did we have something for summer contract services?
We.
43.
Okay, 'cause I was-
43.
Yeah, okay. 43, because I
Yeah.
haven't transcribed it onto this sheet,
4,300.
1,000.
42,000.
We'd like
Oh, yeah.
That
Pretty nice, 4,300.
I have a reading issue,
The highway salt shed,
it's called pencil.
back down to this item here, what do we
We
want?
skipped over that.
We did skip over it because I was concerned about having a match at some point to help subsidize this. If we don't go forward with the shed, it's one thing, but,
Again, I guess, until we
no,
know what monies we have available, I mean, short of me saying, okay, we should budget $75,000 for it.
Right.
Because that's what we're gonna ultimately need.
Need,
And if we don't know how we're gonna come up with any of it, then we have to budget for all of it. So we should budget $75,000 for the match for the salt sand shed.
Again, some of that money was money,
But the percentage doesn't, quite frankly, make any sense.
Yeah.
If you don't know, I mean, if we don't know what we have, then the only assumption that makes any sense is to assume we need all of it. Why would we come up with a percentage that's completely just picked randomly out of the air?
and it appears as though it's gonna come this year,
Mhm.
we're gonna have to cough that out.
well, to what David's saying, we don't know how many dollars we have in the highway department right now that's not dedicated or anything else.
Yeah.
It's really difficult, you're kind of like your crystal ball is a little hazy because you just don't know. And you need to know those numbers to formulate what you wanna do going forward.
Mhm.
Just a comment on the $288,000. After the 20% match, that comes out to be 57,600. So. There
It's
must be,
not, there's lots of other costs.
there are,
Yeah,
There's
there's
project management costs, there's
Sound
design
engineering.
costs, there's all,
Okay.
that's just the construction estimate.
Yeah.
Also, what I'll say is, we have, for the grant purposes, we have added 10% on top of that because we were advised that it's likely.
Overrun, that's what I was asking.
So what the match, the money that we need to come up with,
Yeah.
again, theoretically, is all predicated on what grant money we have received and what our match obligation is for that grant money.
so the deadline for no.
All of that is predicated on estimates of what the thing is going to cost.
Right,
Hopefully, whatever. Maybe we luck out and at the end of this, the whole thing ends up costing less than what it was overall estimated to be, and our match might be less than that, but we have no way of knowing that. But when we committed to taking the $188,000 from the federal government originally, we committed to being responsible for $47,000. When we committed, when we received, which we still haven't gotten the paperwork, but in theory we will at some point, when we got the additional $73,000 from V-Trans for the first grant, we have committed to the 20% match of 90, whatever it was. And the third grant, if we get that grant, part of that is us committing to our $9,000 match. So adding all of those match obligations up gets us to in the vicinity of $75,000. So that's kind of what our theoretical commitment is. And again, a few years ago, I think we were
When we started,
eminently confident that we had plenty of money, that none of that was going to be a problem. I have no idea where we are now.
Exactly.
I guess we
I mean,
need to
none of
go
us
on this category then, yes.
I would think that if we are of the volition or mind to proceed along this path and planning on doing this, knowing that in the final gun, we may say it's too expensive, it would seem relatively prudent to put aside some money toward it rather than do nothing. It's not an all or nothing choice. It's a matter of, do you wish to be somewhat prepared? Or do you wanna be totally stonewalled when you hit that buffer and you decide to proceed? To me, the option, the logical course would be to plan on being prepared.
Exactly.
I don't see an alternative to that.
But not portion of it,
I mean, portion.
meaning a portion of it. If
Oh,
we-
yeah, I'm not saying do it all now, not underneath
Well, I'm
the
saying-
75,000 for this
You
next.
said $75,000 what we need for a match. And supposedly it's gonna be done within the next year, maybe. We're gonna need to come up with that $75,000. The worst thing that can happen is we don't spend the $75,000. Or we change our mind on this salt and sand shed because it's gotten more expensive. And like you said prior, Dave, depends on the contractors, depends on how that all shapes out.
But I guess the problem that I'm having right now is, I understand that we don't know, as we sit here tonight,
How much?
what our financial situation is with the town.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean that somebody doesn't know that, or somebody shouldn't be able to figure that out. We're still sitting here, it's December 8th.
You got a while, a little bit.
You need a
Somebody
report.
should be able to tell us, or we should be able to sit down with someone, or sit down ourselves with details about our financial situation and what our balances are in all of our accounts and what our obligations are for all those accounts, and figure out whether we need to be, how worried about this,
Yeah,
where we need to be on the scale. And yes, it's true, it may be that we've then realized, okay, we should budget
it's not.
$25,000 towards this, or $30,000, or whatever. But it's not like the information isn't there somewhere to be had. We just don't have it tonight.
Can we do that? Is it,
Yeah,
is,
that's-
is
those
there a way
reports-
to do that?
Those reports can be generated relatively easy.
Okay.
Great.
And the bottom line is, the reason I don't do it is because I don't wanna step on someone else's toes.
Right.
They should either delegate that responsibility or do something. The numbers are in there, it's just really
What do I
easy.
need to do then as the chairperson here? I need to write a letter to Mike.
And ask him to give you the exact numbers and details about how much money the town has in the
Or
highway
ask him to
department.
delegate it to you.
And what's delegated.
I thought he said you could delegate, he could delegate.
He hasn't said anything to me.
We have a report from Samara dated October 20th, which has all the fund balances. But that's
Well, then
not-
that should be close to where
Should be
you,
close.
yeah. I mean, there's nothing changed because we haven't paid anybody other than Archie, for some things. But that should give you a snapshot of
Yeah.
at least where you stand. If that's the report that's.
Balance
I'm not an accountant, but I've been willing to
So
spend.
we don't think
everything
we've spent an awful lot of highway money between the beginning of October, whenever that is. and right
Okay,
now.
we have spent a lot of, the money that we spent, we'll pretty much get back 85% of that. But we also have $100,000 that's been given to us from the federal government that we can use that as a buffer.
Well, but that,
You really get to generally, you don't have a train of thoughts, you're losing me.
the problem with the ARPA money. I mean, that's supposed to be in dedicated,
He's not talking about our money, he's talking about the bridge money.
Right. We have the,
$100,000 bridge grant that we're paying off, that we didn't spend because
but that's part of
We got
what we
on board.
have for income, and that's why
oh, okay, sorry.
that $100,000 or now $90,000 or maybe $80,000
Kind of sense
is part of the
50
highway
or
account.
60 probably.
So, and that's a dedicated fund because it can be used for bridges, and what is the other thing, Mark, bridges and bridges and culverts, I don't know, I know bridges. So it is a dedicated
Like
fund,
rock culverts.
but going back to what we're saying, to
I
keep it simple, if you have that report
Yeah.
that shows you how much
Yeah.
money you have in there, that should give you the answers that you need.
Or pretty close to it.
my report is from September 20th. When is yours?
October 20th. Well, the date in the upper left hand corner.
Right. The print date.
It looks like it's the period 3, so it's the third.
Okay, so July, August, September.
And September.
Trial balance worksheet is the topic,
Trial balance worksheet.
so it's not the final, but it's in progress.
She sent that out.
Yeah, I know, it's
She
always
got that.
preliminary.
Too many people. No, that's too much.
So if anyone, I'm not an expert on it, but I'm willing to put in a morning, and it unfortunately can't be until the weekend, like a Saturday morning or Sunday morning or whatever.
Yeah.
Or next week early, like a Monday or a Tuesday,
Well, the sooner the better,
right?
you know, and see if you can get Mike to sit down with you and do a one-by-one thing, whatever it is.
And this says current year, period 3, set.
I believe that's the one. Yes,
So,
set.
I mean,
Mine's
I
period
would
two.
say, I mean, I'm pretty sure that that's stuff through September. So,
Period three.
Yes, yeah, that would be
Yeah,
great, too.
yeah.
It's,
I got period three.
it's 2 months old, that's a long.
I can generate
That's a
that
lot of
report.
money,
We
potentially.
got.
I mean, I think if we're gonna do it, I think
Needs a
we
current.
should go to the trouble of getting the most current one before
All the
anybody
financials.
starts
Not
pouring
just,
through it.
not just the roads, all of them.
Well, the highway is the big one, because that's the one that's,
I think that's the
That was a
most
big number,
pressing
yeah.
one. I mean, I think we have,
Because of the change.
the other stuff, that's, you know, everything else. The highway is the big numbers, and that's the one you need to get.
Well, we kind of need all of those.
You want me to ask Michael to convey to you a delegation? Is that
Well,
what you
see,
said?
ask him if he has the time to do it. If he doesn't, is there someone he could delegate to do that? I mean, you know, I'm trying to be, you know, I,
Forces in, yeah.
Yeah, if he's not doing anything yet, we get a letter from saying he's not sure he can hang on till April 1st
He said he
or town
can.
meeting. Pardon?
He said he would, thinking that Guy was gonna pick up that slack.
Right.
So then this is something he needs to have Guy pick up the slack on.
so wait, I'm confused, so Guy, are you currently assistant treasurer?
yes,
Has been
I have
from the
access
very
to-
beginning.
Okay, so I mean, not that I wanna get, but why exactly can't we just ask you to do this?
Yeah, really.
you can, but I just wanna make sure that Mike is in the loop.
Okay, all right.
Because it would be kind of,
Okay, all right, that's,
You know,
yeah, that's fair enough. Can we ask you to communicate to Mike and make sure he's comfortable with you pulling it? And then,
I'm not sure that's a good idea.
yeah, I think
He's
it's
got
like,
any degree of reservation, which is what I'm reading into,
Yeah.
you feeling
it's just the proper chain of command.
Okay,
Well-
I actually, I'm gonna stop. I thought we already cleared this up, because when I talked
I
to
did.
Mike, he
I
came to
did
my
too.
house, and I thought we cleared it up, that he was gonna delegate anything that you need to do,
He
he's
hasn't
not gonna
spoken
feel,
to me about
in
it.
fairness to Mike, who has asked him to produce this?
nobody.
Right,
There you
so,
There you go.
so, I mean, no one's asked him to
I
do
sent
this.
everything to the treasurer, I do send everything, saying that we're working on this and.
Right, no, I'm just saying that perhaps,
I need to say,
at the same time, I mean, I sort of thought that Guy had already been empowered to do some of these things, but.
I did too.
My sense was he was, but there was a feeling I got that we needed as a select board to notify him to
He did.
interact. You sent him a communication.
He came over to my house and he sat and talked.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, then just a quick phone call. Hey, could you go over to Guy, or could you produce such and such, we need it.
Period
I mean,
four,
there's simplification.
period four.
Period.
No,
Whatever the most,
November,
It's gonna be a period for.
you need November, so you got
Yeah.
July,
Up
August,
to the minute.
September,
whatever the
Period
most up to the minute.
Period 5.
Can't do December.
and period 5, and you can deduct whatever you do in your payroll warrants, and
Okay.
your other warrants, and you'll be pretty close to
or
it.
even if you just ask him, is it all right if I ask Guy to make these reports or something?
You know, I feel uncomfortable, I have a good rapport with them, but I just
Yeah, you don't want
think the chain of command should be followed.
No, I've been in situations where as a supervisor, I asked one person to go talk to, and that person then gave that person a little bit of flack. And then that person came
So
back to
you
me,
want-
and then the guy that was
Yeah,
supposed to do it
yeah.
came back, to me. It ended up being a unnecessary argument.
Yeah.
Alright, so
You
I
understand
think
where I'm
I understand what where you're coming from, and I will try to make everything go smooth, because
Yeah,
you do a
I don't think
lot of
it's any
work for
problem.
us, and I don't wanna, yes, I don't want you to ever feel uncomfortable with.
no, I would like to do the chain
Transition
of command the proper way.
And another thing, I find that when you talk with people, sometimes what seems so obvious to the speaker, because you've already been thinking about it.
Yeah.
The listener takes it totally different.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
with the best intentions, this way it's clarified, it's addressed.
Okay. All right, so
Old man.
I wanna make sure I have my page here, this is the current one. All right, so are we done? No, we talked about putting money in, we don't know how much to put into the salt shed because we don't know how much money we have. We have to, that's a question mark still. Summer highway materials, we said we did this.
34,000.
Or, copy of one of these different sheets.
34,000.
Yep, and materials, highway emergency, we
Nothing.
don't have. The payroll tax will be determined based upon, okay, we're good. What else do you see?
So we're gonna delete the winter payroll taxes, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and winter
That's all.
And
salaries.
winter salaries, yeah.
Anything we can combine.
Sounds good, yes.
So we're basically going, oh, land,
I don't call me conference, just-
No, it's. Get some water.
I just thought I'd be.
oh, we got, all right.
I don't
hear you. Anybody else want to look, we have any down here?
No.
I don't want you handling anything.
The ones on the left, the ones on the left that are flavored.
One- Take a sip and then just pass it
All
around.
right.
Yeah, let's get, when we get COVID, that would be great. Oh, that or distance.
I can tell you're not from Newton.
Keep it up, I'm gonna get knee surgery tomorrow.
Easy, easy.
All right, where are we at?
Watch my knees.
Well, I think I think we filled in everything that we can. And everything that we have historically budgeted, we have put in.
So once we see the numbers, then we can clarify.
I mean,
Well,
rough estimate at the moment, it's looking like.
Bucket give us some money in it.
Oh, I have money to give away, hang on.
Oh, good, I was like 50, 60 grand right
Is
now.
it a single digit or double digit or triple?
It's $2,069.25.
I'm interested.
what, where are you?
I don't know where they are.
Personally
I'm
speaking.
not on the budget sheet. I have from the treasurer, the fund, the old community group fund is inactive, and Samara's tried to eliminate it from our accounting system, but it is prevented from doing so because there's a positive account balance of $2,069.25. When I discussed this with Nemrick, it was suggested that the town might like to transfer this balance to another fund where it can be used, thereby allowing the Fund 6 to be deleted. We could apply this to put this in capital improvement, we can put this in appropriations, you can, whatever. But $2,069.25 can be applied somewhere else.
You can address that later.
Okay, we can address it, just don't want to forget about it.
Yep.
And the VLCT dues, you all got that, numbers that came up
I
recently?
gave you, didn't I give you?
Yeah, you gave
I
us,
see that.
$1,080 or something?
Yeah, it
And
was,
the email.
$1.27 per capita.
yeah, it was 1756, we had budgeted 1,800.
Okay.
That's
So
so we're
we-
good, we're good.
I think we can leave alone for $44. So we might have-
It's in a contract, but some of it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
All right,
Oh, I was wondering,
we can talk about other salaries.
right, we're not showing, how do we handle, we haven't spent $1,000 for Fact TV. And it doesn't look
$1,000 on what?
Fact TV, it's not showing it being distributed.
Right, and the reason, what's happened is Fact TV has lost some of its funding. And they've asked towns to help offset that lack by, I think
An
Brookline gives
appropriation.
$1,500, we give $1,000 and so forth. And it basically, it almost should be like an appropriation in an event, or, I don't know, or you can just put it down as broadcast fees, which would certainly, that's what it's costing them, that's what it's costing the town. They have to pay a cameraman $75 to come and do it, they pay me $50. And for years, they paid me nothing, but they said it wasn't fair because everyone else was getting paid, they have to hire someone. So that's basically what that fund is for. I think Brattleboro gets $4,000 or $5,000. It's to offset what they've lost through the federal government changing of what Comcast fees or what they can claim for. It's a whole bunch, it's a can of worms, to be honest with you, but they lost funding.
Well, that may be the case, but it's somewhere in the revenues and expenses. That and, there's another, that and one other, the county tax. That we're spending or doesn't show as being paid.
I know, because again, there was a change of the county manager, or county clerk, or the county person, Pat, whatever her name, retired.
Yeah.
There was a little confusion with COVID, things, but we did get a figure, I thought.
Remember, we're only if you're looking at
I'm sorry, we're not, it's not a.
if you're looking at the actual for FY 2022, remember, you're only looking at 4 months.
Right,
So it's entirely possible that Fact TV that we don't pay Fact TV until later in the year. And
Right, well, I've asked them
pay
to
county
submit a
tax until
letter
later in the year.
requesting.
If we look back at the last closed fiscal year, we did pay Fact TV $1,000. And we did pay county tax.
And I spoke with them
6307.
and asked them to submit a letter for broadcast fees, just so we had some sort of track record for it.
Okay, I'll look at that.
But the county tax,
Based on this
where's the
summary,
county
anyway,
tax?
it could be somewhere
Page
else.
3.
It doesn't show that.
page 3, county tax, and that's, again, I thought we had something like county tax,
There it is.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
we paid
$1,000.
6307 last year. I mean, there was a period of time when we didn't pay it, when we hadn't been billed for it.
right,
Last
and
year,
I
we-
think the number that we got was 6,500, and I
Yeah.
don't know, did we get an invoice for that, or?
I think we have not gotten at least as of not long ago, we haven't gotten an invoice for it for this fiscal year. But somebody had communicated
Yeah,
to
and
us
it's gonna be,
6,500.
and I
I communicated to you and
yes.
we put that.
That's a comfortable figure.
We put that in, assuming that's
Yep.
what we're doing. So I just wanna say, not that this, just for informational purposes, I just did a quick tally, it looks like so far of what we've gone through on the highway budget, that's increase of a little under $60,000.
60,000,
Yeah,
and the financials will help us determine where we at from last year. Over or under.
Well, it gives you an idea of where we stand, so you know what to budget and, where you're gonna be, if you need next X amount of dollars to offset what we have to match in the grant for
You're
the,
talking about 60,000.
yeah. No, that doesn't, I don't think that includes, did you appropriate money
No.
for the?
no, that has nothing to do with the grant, setting up budgeting money for
Yeah.
grants or anything. I just mean with what we've
Increase
just
it by
talked
so
through,
far.
the increases that we
Right.
just talked about, or
Yeah.
the lines I've gone through.
Materials and
It's an
salaries.
increase of a little under
And this has to do with
$60,000.
salt sand shedding,
Yeah.
is
That's
No, no.
something we haven't yet
determined,
determined.
right, where that's gonna happen.
So if you took,
We need some freaking numbers, we need to know a surplus, which is probably not a very large amount of money.
Dave, you got a computer there, don't you?
Yeah.
Divide, $72,000 by 70 million.
By 70 million.
2,000 divided by 70,
I don't know if your computer will do it.
it is 0.1%.
All right, so you're gonna go
Is that right?
up,
A tenth of a
Yeah.
percent.
because that's what it's gonna cost us,
That's
Our network is $70 million, after you back out the use taxes and everything else, we have $73 million. Then you take out the $3 million that we pay for land use.
Right.
So we have a net worth of about $70 million. That $70 million is how we develop what we're gonna pay for taxes. We divide that $70 million worth by how much money we have to raise. The education tax is another thing all by itself.
We don't even touch that yet.
The education tax is set by the education department. They use a formula all by them.
Oh, let's not bring it up.
So you're saying a tenth of a percentage point?
So, I'm thinking it's gonna be, that would be,
10 cents on the dollar?
I'm thinking $100. All right, so instead of being 0.44, I think it's gonna be 0.54 for our tax rate,
Tax rate.
yeah, on the municipal side. Right now, we're at 0.44. That bring us up to about 0.54.
Given this.
Yeah, and that's just totally preliminary.
Guesstimate, yeah.
Yeah. Just to give you an idea where you're going,
Yeah, okay.
and you know that education's gonna go up. I mean, it's just, that's the,
does.
well, no, that's just the way it is.
Unbelievable.
Thank you very much, everybody, for,
Thank you.
I know, I just find this very stressful.
It is.
So, is that it?
Well, I don't know, I mean,
The thing you have
give me
left
the
is
taxes.
salaries
I'm looking here, I'm going down the sheet,
with the,
got all the numbers, the first page is
I,
fine.
you got the listers, you got everything there.
We can talk about well, it's 8:30, I don't know how much time we go past that. We haven't determined the treasurer, assistant treasurer.
Right.
Well, you have to establish what kind of organization you have there, and you gotta base it upon if Mike doesn't run and someone runs, you gotta figure out how many hours that person has to be in there to do the job efficiently and at a certain prescribed rate. And that's the only way you can do it,
The
because
only way you can do it.
you can't,
And from what I hear, from what we recall from Samara, and she sent us an email way back when, she thought that someone who spent a good 5 hours a week should be able to do the treasury.
Somebody that knows what they're doing.
That's a CPA?
Yes.
no.
Easy.
To be honest, can I just say something?
Someone who's trained and.
With all the grants and all these funds and all this accounting that you're gonna have to do, you're gonna need a little more than 5 hours.
Plus the assistant treasurer's times.
Okay,
They're talking about with two
well, all
assistant
right,
treasurers.
all right,
And the treasurer should be able to run the major part of the responsibilities for 5 hours a
you-
week. Plus the work of the assistant treasurer.
you elect the treasurer.
And
The
you,
treasurer develops who he wants for his team,
right,
a billing clerk, whatever it is. That's where you establish, that's why I say the treasurer is the one who makes the decisions for the town in regards to, money.
But
How he wants to get there is he wants to have someone who does, the billing and so forth. The payroll's already been paid for, not paid for, payroll is done by an automated thing. If you have a billing clerk like Judy, that takes a little pressure off the treasurer, but there's an incredible amount of work you still have to do.
But a person that's newly taking over, even though they're experienced, they're gonna have to get up to speed as to how this town is. So we're gonna have to allow that in the hours. You can just say, well, Samara says, well, 5 hours a week, because I know what I'm doing. But 5 hours a week not be somebody that, like Sarah or somebody else coming in here, or it's not gonna be enough. So we're gonna
No,
have to-
I would say just for one day, 8 hours
There you go.
would be,
You're gonna have to bump it a little bit, or you're gonna not
yeah,
gonna be accurate.
otherwise you're just not, you're
You're
gonna,
not gonna be accurate. No way.
alright, so
because I think Judy's doing what, 10 or 15
Maybe after
hours?
the first year, you're gonna have a baseline.
What is Judy doing for,
You can make it.
10 hours, 12 hours a week?
I just put the payroll envelope in the other room, so I don't know.
Yeah, like 400 bucks.
Here's your warrants and pay accounts here. Judy, yeah, so she did, doesn't say hours, it says, you know, how much she's getting, 300,
So that's 10 hours,
okay,
$20 an hour, I think.
okay.
That's two.
Yeah, it's 10
Hour
hours.
times 10 is 200.
So she's doing more than, she was 15 hours then, it's $300.
Right.
So she's doing 15 hours
And
in this pay period. Pay
And
period is
then-
2 weeks.
And then I'm in there for 2 or 3 hours a week that I answer all the tax bills, all the people
Right.
wanna know all that stuff. So that's 80, you know, so 15, that's 3 is 18, and 8 hours for the treasurer itself. That gives you an idea of what you need to do.
That's per pay
Alright, well
period,
then
right?
I can pull
So
that.
that's 13 hours a week. Do I have it right? That's per pay period, right?
So it sounds like
Every 2
two.
weeks.
8, no, how many hours did you say, Judy, that's 15 a week?
15 for 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Let's call it 8 a week.
I thought she was doing 10 hours a week.
I mean, that's just
Well,
one
it's
pay
not-
period,
that's one
so-
pay period. And
Yeah,
there's
Now,
other
then we just got, she was about $400. I remember, I looked at it pretty quickly.
400, 420, 300.
Yeah, see? So she's working 20 hours.
440, 90 something,
Put some hours.
260, 250.
So that's 10 hours a week anyway.
It's, yeah, I mean, what you're describing sounds like it probably averages out to about 10 hours a week.
Yeah.
So that's 10 hours a week for
Then
this.
$8 hours for the treasurer, and another 2 or 3 for another assistant. So
Let's
you got
say
8,
two. So let's
18.
say it's 20, let's say 20 hours.
Yeah,
400 a week. Based on $20 an hour.
Yeah, so then that brings you to maybe like $1,000-ish. Which I think last year we probably budgeted something.
I don't know, what did you
17.
budget last year? Let's see.
I think we budgeted, well, I just added them up, I mean, there was a logic behind it, but of course
Yeah.
it was
So you had,
Assistant treasurer budgeted was,
9451.
Yeah,
plus
9451.
8320. Last year we budgeted 17,771.
For everybody.
We're probably looking at, I mean, what we've just discussed now is probably more like, again, and this is assuming for the moment that everyone was being paid about $20 an
Yeah.
hour-ish, is more like 21,000,
That's together.
20,800
That's together.
together.
that's all treasurer department.
That's the treasurer, right. Like we said, that's essentially 20 hours a week of a treasury department.
That can be broken down to assistant work as delegated.
And I can only see with all the grant and the funding and everything else, it's gonna be pretty complex. You got all these grants from the federal government, you got 5 years to spend. It's just gonna be a lot of work, plus the federal government is always asking for you to do something.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
well, they're gonna change the rules, and they're gonna ask for different forms.
I think, I'm not gonna say.
Alright, so
They're
that's
gonna be so annoying by giving us the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of
Oh, they're gonna
dollars,
be in our face.
which they're in the process of giving us. Yeah, that really does suck.
And it's gonna be in our face.
I
Look at what
am,
we're doing for
one of the
FEMA.
things I wanted to do was
Yes,
contact
that's
the
exactly what I was
new
thinking
state
about.
treasurer and see if she was interested in, if she had other time or had any other contacts as well. But, alright, I will contact Mike first, and then you think.
It's an idea, but I look at her salary, and I would bet she's here almost full time.
Oh, they are.
I think it's like $30,000.
Yeah, between $30,000 and $60,000 is what treasurers are getting around
Yeah.
that do it on a regular basis. Like I say, it's a complex, it's not as simple.
Are they doing everything? They're doing the system?
Well, they have, that's their department, I
She's the
think.
only person I know of. When I've gone in there and asked her for tax bill receipt, president appraiser and so forth, she's been
Just
the
one
only
person.
Who's that, Sam?
Her last name is Brown
Where at,
and Newfane.
oh, okay, yeah,
Brown?
the treasurer, she's a young lady.
She's in her 30s, early
Yeah,
40s.
yeah.
That's a young lady.
Yes,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
other
right,
lady.
not a real like us.
This girl. Alright, I'm just scanning through my papers here.
So what was
So
that?
landfill fees, have we gotten any information about what that might be this year?
The meeting is tomorrow night.
Oh, yeah, isn't Dan going to that?
Yes, the meeting is tomorrow night. For,
Did you
with
plug in a
regional-
figure for treasurer just as a ballpark figure? Did you do anything with that? For the
Did you write
treasurer?
down what
We
we
haven't
said
done
that
any
came out?
of them yet.
Well, I mean, I think
Total is
we should probably consider 21.
Okay,
personally.
But we
And that'll
like
cover-
that between treasurer and assistant.
that's the
Well-
total department.
The other thing is that I think we could consider not splitting it up like it's been split up before. Because, I mean, unless or we just guess again at what amount is treasurer and what amount is
Just figure out. what the
assistant
total-
treasurer.
Just figure out what the total.
Well, I think if
once
you
a
give
month.
the treasurer a budget, the treasurer should delegate what he needs to do his department.
I mean, it's tricky because in previous years, when we have budgeted for this, we at least had an idea or we had some sense of who these people were going to be.
Yeah,
And you know what I mean? And that the assistant treasurer might do more of the
This and that.
this and this and this, and the treasurer would do more of that. I mean, honestly, right now, personally, I have no idea what the positions are even going to be. So we could decide that it's 21 and we could choose to split it up in roughly the same fashion that we did when it was a lower number, just with higher numbers. Or
The assistant
could
treasurer made more.
consider just whether we roll it into one treasury item.
department.
I mean, I don't wanna change a lot of things about how we've done it, because then it just makes work for whoever does take on the treasurer role to restructure things, so I suppose we could just say, I mean, let's just say for the sake of argument that we decided 21 was a number that we thought we were comfortable with.
And if you look at the difference, it's roughly $1,000 between the two, so if you split it in half and went 1050 and reduce that, so we get 9,500 for the treasurer and the balance for the assistant treasurer.
Sure, yeah, let's do that.
All right, so treasurer is how much?
9,500, you said?
Yep.
And then
And the assistant treasurer?
is
Uh,
21
11,500.
minus.
But again, the assistant treasurer
What?
is appointed by the treasurer.
11,500.
The assistant treasurer is appointed by the treasurer.
Right,
Do they-
there could be
do they
2 or
decide the
3 or
pay
4
scale?
of them.
Right, so what I was thinking, that if you gave the treasurer's department a budget saying, this is what you have, however you get there, this is how much money you have to spend.
You just gotta
So he
figure
would
it
have
out.
to say, he'll ask to have an assistant do maybe 4 or 5 hours a week at a different rate, and may have a billing clerk at a different rate. You know, the onus should be on the treasurer to run his
I
department.
prefer that.
I mean, I think
that's
that's
too many people
Right.
running the show. You, like you said, there should be one person that.
And they report to the
Run show.
treasurer.
Right, although I guess, and I don't necessarily disagree with that conceptually, but I think we need to remember that the structure
It's
that
different.
exists and that I think is statutorily in place is that the select board are the ones who both set this budget and determine the pay rates for the employees. The treasurer doesn't decide how much the assistant treasurers are gonna be paid, we decide that.
Right, we have a
And what
schedule.
what he's talking about is hours, but what you're talking about is pay.
I mean, the way it's worked in the past, and I don't think it needs to change, is we've not, I mean, effectively, at the end of the day, the treasurer should know we need to try to keep under $21,000 for our department as a whole. There were years, even when there were years when Samara worked more hours and Louise worked less hours, and then other years when it flipped. As long as the net effect is that they stay within the budget, no one's gonna beat them up about that.
Yeah.
It's exactly, it's the treasurers who determine how that flows, but we have to set the budget, and we have to do that predicated on how much money we are
All right, so
prepared
you're
to
putting
pay
down,
people.
you're putting down how much for the treasurer?
9,500.
9,500 for the treasurer and 11,500 for the assistant treasurer.
assistants, okay, so
For all assistants.
9,500,
So you basically have.
It follows the same sort of trend that we
Yep.
had last year, which again might not end up being accurate, but it's,
Close probably.
it's what we have to go by.
And
All
basically
right, so
got
assistant,
it's a
where's
good-
assistant
a
treasurer?
treasurer.
So the assistant treasurer is, how much is the assistant?
11,500,
So you got treasury department, $21,000.
which is an increase of about
3,000.
3-ish.
Yeah, well, that's definitely leaves some buffer in there, that's for sure.
I know we've spent time, if I may,
Yes,
on insurance and bonds already, and we did the split. The numbers that you were provided, did they include the salary adjustment we had given to the road supervisor?
When,
Are they predicated on last year's numbers?
in regards to the insurance,
The insurance is the,
right, when I went to
workers'
the portal
comp, et cetera.
and I increased the insurance, there's a number in there for administrative costs,
Yes,
and I included the raise that was given to.
you did,
Yes, I did,
okay.
because it used to be 42 or 33, and I bumped it up to 66,000,
Okay,
which is the administrative cost, the cost of town clerk, the highway, people that are
okay,
on the payroll.
okay,
And she said it wasn't, and the underwriter, Amy said it wasn't a real big jump because that amount that however they multiply that multiplier was so small that it didn't really make a big difference. But it would make, maybe $30 or $40, or maybe $100 difference in the insurance what we pay.
because they have 3 different rates.
Right,
One for the administrative, one for the other office help,
right,
and then one for highway crew.
and the
The
one I
highway
did,
crew is $5.70 per 100, I think, or 1,000.
1,000 maybe. Well, I don't know, I'd have to look at my insurance.
So there is a difference. It's
Right.
not one number across all 3.
Let me see if I can pick it up.
Because I came up with a workman's comp number using the data that was in there, but I might have included other workers than just administrative. And I came up with a workman's comp number in and of itself, $3,005.11, which is
I have to
significantly
really
more
look
than
at
the
this.
$850.
We're showing workman's comp at 3818, which is $1,000 deductible. And the contribution summary includes property, buildings, equipment breakdown, crime, general, workman's comp is $3,818.
We measured town meeting, people questioning about it.
No, they wouldn't, but for us purposes, us knowing that we're comfortable with the numbers.
Yeah.
Right. That's really important, I think.
I think you're right, just having confidence in what we're doing.
Exactly. And yeah, we are being recorded. Well, everyone has a right to know what's going on.
that's right.
I can redo the numbers, we don't need to sit here and do it now, but I can just email it to everyone.
Alright,
If I'm wrong, and I'll say I'm wrong. If I'm right,
And I'll ask him to send us out and or to talk with Guy about getting those most recent financials sent out to us.
That'd be good.
great.
Alright, we have a select board meeting
Next week.
next week, and I'm working on the agenda before we close this meeting, I'm sorry. But are we going to do executive session for lease discussion or no? We are, I think so.
We've got to.
Yeah, we do.
Well, yeah, we really should look at those insurance numbers and kind of, was kind enough to get.
Right, so those will come up in an executive session.
I'm
and
guessing that has to change it.
then- Yeah,
Well, it did,
How much?
$150 to
How
a
much?
million, from 150,000 to $1 million,
No, oh, you're talking about that insurance,
yes.
hers, her end.
Yeah, liability.
yeah.
Yeah, we shouldn't be
I-
discussing this right now.
That's correct, we shouldn't be.
Alright, so executive session for lease, and do you wanna put a little bit of budget time in there, we can
Yeah,
just
I mean,
handle it?
the thing I'll point out is that meeting next week is our last regular meeting of the year unless,
We change it.
so,
The next
And-
one's the fifth.
right, and we really probably need to be finalizing. I mean, figure worst case scenario, January 19th, which is the second meeting in January, we need to be voting and approving the warning for town meeting, which means we have to have all of this done
Accurate, yeah.
and accurate and
Okay.
whatever. So, yeah, I think we definitely need to,
As far as the school paperwork and that comes in, that they will send it to us in a timely fashion as they always do, right? Before the warning goes out.
about what,
About the taxes for this education taxes, what does not have to be put into our booklet? Oh, no.
no, we never know that.
We don't do-
We never know that information, but here's what I will say, we do have to have, all of this has to be plugged into a spreadsheet to calculate what the municipal tax rate is going to be, and that needs to be, I mean, I don't know that it's always been audited by the auditors at that point, but it's at least always been done by Samara. So I don't know who's doing that. I mean, I have a copy of the spreadsheet, but under no circumstances should any of us be
No.
the ones who have come up with that rate.
Right.
It has to be the treasurer. So we have to figure that out.
Yeah.
All of that to say, the sooner we get ourselves completely done with this, the sooner we can get whoever needs to look at all of it to make sure it's good for us to be able to approve.
So that
Sure,
makes sure we
we're
vote
pretty
on the
strict.
rate?
Go ahead. That's fine.
So is that when we vote on a tax rate? After,
No, we don't,
You don't vote on a tax rate.
We don't vote on a tax
until
rate.
after town meeting.
right, what we do vote on is we vote on the warning that has the budget. And what ultimately is also a part of, and statutorily has to be part of the town report, are the estimated tax rates.
okay,
And all of this is predicated on what we've come up with
Yes.
for our budget. So this we have to be done with the budget
By the night,
And-
by Patty's birthday.
by, well, no,
Before that.
no, before that, because January 19th, we have to read and
Oh, we have to-
approve
oh, right.
this entire warning that has all of that
Has to be done
rolled
by
up
then.
detail into it.
Right.
Right, so executive session, budget, and try to make everything else pretty streamlined and
If we get our financials, so we can look at it again and all that.
yep. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for this evening's hard work.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn, please stand, seconded by David, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adjourning this evening's meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting has been adjourned. The time is 8:47.